the waves are cresting, slamming into the sand, and the undertow is also coming at the same exact same place. And I got knocked down by a wave, and I'm fumbling around. I kind of get back up, and another one comes and it pulls my feet out from under me, and I'm scrambling trying to get up. And then a third one came, and I knew in that moment I was done. But what that kind of gave me was this feeling that there's something looking out for me. And I think that's not just me. I think it's all of us. And I really wanted to enforce that message today.
So vision.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Lonnee Rey with us. She has had a near-death experience. She's also had probably what I would call a spiritual transformative experience. We're going to dig into what that would be like. She's also a ghostwriter, multi best-selling author, so lots of things she's been doing. But first of all, I appreciate you so much, Lonnee. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Wild horses couldn't keep me away, Joe. I'm so excited to share this. Thank
Nice.
you.
Well, I've been excited to talk to you. And as we mentioned before we started recording here, every experience that someone has is a little bit different, and it seems yours is as well. And so, I'm excited to bring that information to the Soul Inspired family and anybody listening in. But I always like to go back a little bit first and start as your childhood. I go back to little Lonnie when you started out in this world, and I try to see what possibly religious backgrounds you had, what your life was like growing up, just a little background on who you were before we got to this stage that you're in now.
Sure thing. Sundays were the days that my parents dropped us off wherever it was convenient. So I had a little bit of Baptist Bible school in the summers. I had Jewish temple. I had wherever my best friend was going that week. It was mixed, varied, whatever was convenient to get the kids out of the house. That was my upbringing. Um, uh, I did have an experience when I was 8. Um, I I tried to overdose on a bunch of baby aspirin, and I got scared. Um, I figured I was in trouble either way, but in case, like my parents found me, flat on the floor in the morning, I at least needed to knock on their door and let them know what I did. And I knocked on the door timidly at first, and then a little louder, and finally I heard, "What do you want?" And I said, I took a lot of baby aspirin and I'm scared." And they yelled at me through the door, "Go back to bed."
Wow.
And they did not come and check on me. And what that did to me was registered that I really wasn't wanted, that I was in the way. Those were all the feelings that I had. Um, it was a deep-seated wound that stayed with me. I experienced an awful lot of decades of despair, depression, and self-loathing. I have had it's taken a long time to find this,
Mm.
and in that regard, I hope that I'm proof positive that a person can undo the knots from the childhood stuff and create a new tapestry. So
Wow. That's incredible. How old were you again when that happened, the aspirin incident there?
8.
So at 8 years old, what was going on that made you want to do something like that? Or how did you, I don't even think how an 8-year-old could go to that
How
level.
you get there? How do you get there?
Hmm.
Yeah. My twin brothers were born when I was 7, and I found a purpose. I could be mini mom. But I also found that now that there were 4 kids in the house instead of 2, unless I was being a people pleaser, I was in the way. My stepfather was a bully all the way through and through. Um, I experienced a lot of emotional wounds, teasing. It was bad at school, but it was worse at home if I came home and talked about it. So my self-esteem was in the gutter, and it was really conditional love. if I didn't perform, jump through some magic invisible hoop that was raised higher and I didn't know. It's what it felt like. It was my fault and I needed to go away.
Hmm.
Just, go cry your alligator tears somewhere else. Go away. We don't like you very much right now. And a lot of that, narcissistic bullies for parents really takes the wind out of a young spirit. I have one photo from my past, and it's me when I was two-ish, and I keep that on my wall to remind me that there was a time when I felt loved, and I had that light in me. I don't recall this moment in particular, but I did hear about this from my mom later that at 2.5, while I was visiting my real dad, I guess they'd separated. There was some occasion for him to spank me, and I wouldn't stop crying, and so he tried to suffocate me to death with a pillow, and his girlfriend stopped him. And I didn't know about any of this. So obviously, I don't remember. But they called when I was home, taken home. My mom saw the handprints on my back, legs, and my bottom, and she took me to the hospital because they were so bad. And they called him in, and he said, "Well, that isn't all I tried to do. I tried to kill her." He had a rageaholic personality. And so that, subliminally would have settled in as "you're not wanted, kid." And add that, by the time I was 6, Joe, I was packing my bags to run away. I Once the twins were born, I found a purpose, but again, that was conditional. If I could maybe perform well enough, then I could be loved, at least for a little while. And it wasn't all bad, so it was very confusing because it's really hard for a kid to know, like, am I okay or aren't I? Because there were times and there were great times and it wasn't always bad, and then there would be these takeaways, if you will, the rug pull, the other shoe would drop, but I never knew when that would happen. And so at that particular night when I took those aspirin, I don't know what preceded that moment, but it would have been another gut-wrenching tear down. And I just thought, I'm just better off gone. I wish I wasn't here. And that message was echoed through their door, through the response or lack of it. That I mean, my little kid, when I was 6 and started packing to run away, was like, maybe they'll treat me better if they find me, or, little kid sense, right? Maybe they'll regret, maybe they'll feel bad. I mean, a little kid that's forced to stuff their emotions inside turns on themselves. That's what happens. If you're not allowed to express how you feel, get that look off your face. And it's like, I'm sorry, you just attacked 8-year-old me or 7-year-old me. And how am I supposed to look that would stop the attack? Because it's bad enough that I feel like this, but now you're going to, you know, do this to it. So
Yeah.
it wasn't easy.
So you didn't, I mean, I wasn't gonna, you definitely didn't have the standard childhood. You had one of the more upsetting ones. And I think the reason why I went right away and asked you about, why that would happen at 8 years old. Well, here you are 8 years old, and when kids go through stuff like that, they're kind of forced to age a lot faster as well. So even though you're
Yes.
still young, you're thinking more like almost like a teenager, and we know how teenagers can get. So your mindset is already in this idea of what could happen if I take all this aspirin, and so that's why I ask, because a lot of, I mean, some 8-year-olds will be, picking their nose and playing marbles and like whatever they're doing. They're not
I
thinking
had
about
those moments. No doubt I did.
right, right. But for a child to get to that place, and I have some background working with youth and stuff. I understand that a lot of it comes from, and as soon as you mentioned that when you were really little and not remembering what had happened, that yeah, that's an imprint. Whether or not that memory hasn't completely formed, that imprint would already be causing influence on you. So, and speaking of influence, then there wasn't a ton of religious influence then. It's just that you just kind of, no one really told you about this, God, or did anyone explain what life was
Well,
at that level?
yeah, inappropriate things happen, like dropping us off at the theater. 8-year-old me or 9, and my brother, a year younger, to go watch Jesus Christ Superstar, which was probably not age appropriate, but there was no regulation in my parents were just like, it's Sunday, get rid of the kids. So I I had influences from all kinds of places. And and you'll see in a moment when I tell you one of these stories where that showed up later, the expectations of what should be happening next.
Okay, and that's usually why that question comes up. I like to find out people's, religious backgrounds a little bit just to see if there's any influence. And sometimes it actually does correlate to the experience, and sometimes it's completely opposite. So it's very fascinating for me to find out through talking
Yeah.
with people. So, so moving forward, so I'm assuming that one of these experiences didn't happen at 8. You somehow survived that, right? And so when did the first, this first, I don't know if it was the near death experience or if it was this spiritual experience, but which one came first and how did that happen?
This near death experience is the best way I can describe it, but it doesn't fit the mold. There was a hurricane out over Cuba, and in South Florida, the waves were coming up, up over the pier. Beach was closed, but my brother and I thought it would be cool to ride the waves, so we rode our bikes out there. Beach is closed, gates shuttered, everything. Just me and him. Oh, and then George, the lifeguard. George was there. What a coincidence! And George knew us, and he knew we could swim. And George said, "Let me take you out past where the waves are breaking," which was quite a chore. And we did. We got out there. And so then they were just swells, and I was getting seasick. And it wasn't the body surfing that we thought we would have fun doing in these big waves, right? So I said to the guys, my brother and George, I said, I'm going in. So I'm paddling in, and I get to the place where the waves are cresting, slamming into the sand, and the undertow is also coming at the exact same place. And I got knocked down by a wave, and I'm fumbling around. I kind of get back up, and another one comes and it pulls my feet out from under me, and I'm scrambling trying to get up. And then a third one came, and I knew in that moment I was done. I just knew I'm done. I can't get air fast enough. I don't know which way is up. And in that moment, in that realization, I pulled out of my body, and I was kind of like looking around. I wasn't scared. I was just in darkness. And I was thinking, it isn't there supposed to be a tunnel? Where's the light? Where's my little life review? I'm only 12. It shouldn't take long. All these thoughts are running through my head. And I look peripherally to my right, and I'm like, am I imagining this, or is this the tunnel and the light that I heard about so many times, whether, whatever upbringing I had, it was a hodgepodge. But those were my expectations. And then suddenly I'm back in my body, and I'm like a cat being, pulling a kitten up by its neck. Some man was there. A man was there. The beach was closed. Okay. I don't know how he even saw me. It doesn't make any sense. I was floundering in the waves. You couldn't see me. My raft was up on shore, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember that part. All I remember is a man pulled me up and walked me to shore and sat me down. I didn't need resuscitation. Nothing. Nothing. And he looked at me and he said, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm all right." And I watched him walk down the beach, and I could be dramatic and I could say, "And then he disappeared," but but I won't. He eventually was out of sight. And then I looked out at the ocean, and it finally hit me what had just happened. And only then did I get scared. It was like all of a sudden the humanness, settled back in and went, "Oh my God, I almost just died." I don't know what that was, but what it taught me was that there is nothing but peace. It doesn't matter how you go. When you leave your body, it doesn't register anymore. And I think that stuck with me my whole life, Joe, that I don't necessarily test boundaries, like, you know, but at the same time, I have not had a fear of death like a lot of people do. And I'm very grateful for that experience. And the year before, Joe, I meant to mention this. I was on an airplane and I love flying, and I was flying by myself, and I was looking out over the wing before the plane took off, and out of the blue, this panic hit me, and I was like, "Oh no, is the plane's gonna crash? The plane's gonna crash." I don't know where it came from, and I was freaking myself out, and it was very uncustomary because I love flying. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice. And I was sitting by myself in the row, okay? And I hear this voice that said, "Don't worry, it's not your time yet." And I looked up, I looked around, I'm like, "What?" What? And I looked back out at the window and I got freaked out again, got myself all worked up, and the voice happened louder. "Don't worry, it's not your time yet." And I'm like, "Who is talking to me?" Anybody else hear that? And it was so convincing that I was like, I reached up, hit the stewardess light, and I said, "Ding, can I have a Coke?" And just went on with my life. But what that kind of gave me was this feeling that there's something looking out for me. And I think that's not just me. I think it's all of us. And I really wanted to enforce that message today that there's
Wow.
something looking out for
So
us.
you had, so this was prior to the NDE where you had this just internal voice that came through. And it's so I've told this story before. I tell little stories of my own life on Soul Inspired, but I had when I was in my early 20s, I was questioning a lot of things, and I told myself before bed one night I wanted proof. I said, I want some kind of proof. Don't take me home yet, but give me something that I can kind of question. And I asked it with a certainty, right? There's like this certainty we sometimes can do in our willingness. And I did it instead of just for, oh, maybe I'd like that, but deep down you're like, no, I don't want it. That's not going to happen. I was like, no, show me. And I woke up around 2 or 3 in the morning and I heard this thunderous sound saying my name. It just kept saying
Oh,
Joe, and it kept saying this really loud. And I was with my previous partner at the time, and she was in bed beside me, and
oh,
like
wow.
a small child, I was so scared because I came into my human. I woke up hearing this. I was in between, and I started like shaking, almost like uncontrollably. And I grabbed a hold of her, and I was like, "Oh my God, like what's happening?" Right? And then I calmed down, went back to sleep, but I've never forgotten that. I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was the voice of God, if that was my own internal something. I know it wasn't like a dream. I know it wasn't. But when you say it like the way you just said, it's not your time, I audibly could hear it, but in a space that doesn't make any sense. It wasn't in my ears, it was everywhere. It was everything. It was almost like it overtook the entire. If there was music going, I wouldn't have heard the music. I would have just heard that, if that makes sense.
It
So
absolutely does.
yeah, so that's kind
You
of where I
also
can relate. Yeah.
and I'm so glad you brought that up because I tested too. So a lot of drama happened in my little life. And when I was 11, we moved back down to Florida away from everything that I knew. And my mom had just shared with me that she was going to put a hit out on my stepfather. Choice, right? Great lady,
Mm.
huh? Yeah. Anyway, I'm freaking out a little bit. My little 11-year-old self is like, I don't like this man that's my stepfather. He doesn't live with us anymore, but this is really upsetting. Um, and I was reaching out for help. And I said, and this is a still South Florida night, no breeze, humid, no fan. And I decided to test. And I said, Jesus, if you exist, and I'm like, what can I say? What can I say? Make the curtains blow. Ah, right? It was like, aha, curtains blow.
Mm.
I was like, do it again. Third time's a charm. Do it again. I said, okay, we're good. And that night I had a dream that I was sitting on top of the world, like it was a beach ball that could fit two people, me and Jesus. I had my hands on my knees like this, and he was pointing out things in the galaxy.
Mm.
It was neat. It was just so cool. So
It's
yeah, I
amazing,
had
right? When
that.
you do it. And like I said, you had a knowingness that you really wanted the proof. Like that you like I don't know how you met how you just labeled that. Forget what you said, but you said like you
Test the
asked you
system.
tested it. Yeah, you're testing the system. Exactly. See, I think a lot of people they'll walk through their life without any type of belief, anything outside of this meat suit. Yet because they're not actually testing it. And we got to be careful how hard we want to test that. But
Yeah.
they're not actually pushing that boundary of really wanting that. And that's why I'm saying that's why that night when I asked for it, I knew going to bed, I went, ooh, I feel like I really asked. Like I feel like this was like a real ask. And I'm like, what does that mean it's going to be? And luckily for me, it was a light it brought fear to my life only because I think looking back, it was so out of my realm. It was so out of my normal. I don't, I don't want to say that the voice was scary. It was just so strong that
Yeah.
it was overwhelmingly scary in a way. Like I had fear here from it. But that's amazing that you can even remember that, because as a kid, you're more open to that. When you had this out of body experience and you jumped into this darkness, this blackness. I always say to people when people tell me they leave their body and they go into the dark or the black void or whatever it is, as someone who's not had an NDE, I go, that doesn't sound like a fun experience. It sounds like you're in this big black void. And then they try to explain it more. And I think I'm getting a little more and more about why, but what about it felt peaceful?
You're detached. Whatever happened, whatever brought you to that moment, you don't have a relationship with that anymore. There is no fear. It's a very neutral place. And you become an observer of yourself, looking at whatever's going on. It is a complete detachment. And that neutral zone is like, oh, okay. All right, this is what's next. Cool. Like there is no human emotion. Like I said, it took a while sitting on the shore of the beach to get back into humanness and realize that was when fear set in. That was when I freaked out. It wasn't for a while because there's an absence of fear, peace is the best way to describe it. Yeah. I was a little disturbed because I had my expectations. I was like, well, hang on, shouldn't I see that little life? And am I imagining it? Did I see that? Where's the tunnel? Where's the light? And I was like, kind of like trying to conjure it up because I thought that I expected that. I had enough religious background to expect that. And and it was like I got robbed because it was starting to show up, and that was how I knew I was done. And then got pulled up, and out you
Right.
go, kid. Sit on the
Hmm.
shore and figure it out.
Yeah, because I was right away gonna say it does sound like you're in that in between, that transitional period that happens that people talk about as they're kind of exiting this existence and going to whatever comes beyond this. There's like that in between, and then it starts to formulate. You see a speck of light, you look at the light, and you move toward it, and then it's a whole different experience, right? You're flying down this tunnel. There's so many different things people have told me that happen. Sometimes people just right away are it's like they teleport to this other existence. There's those people too, but yours was kind of like in that state of, okay, I'm ready, I'm about to go, and then you're pulled back into this body. Did you still feel like Lonnie? Like, was there a piece of you that still came with you outside of this? Because you said you were detached.
It's
So
very
like
detached.
it's very
Yeah,
detached. So even your
yeah.
personality, nothing was there. It
No,
was just
no. Well, there had to have been because I was like, doing a checklist. Where's the stuff? Where's all the promised stuff that they set us up to believe was supposed to happen?
right.
So so I wasn't, an empty shell. I still had thoughts.
Hmm.
But this is the thing I want people to know is like live your life, live out loud because when it is your moment and we'll go into that next one in a minute about that. Um, it's okay. It's so fine. Like whatever got you there, you don't have that anymore. It's so different. You still have a semblance of yourself, but whatever got you there, it doesn't matter anymore. It just falls away. And there's just this zone of nothingness, at least at first.
And yet
So
peaceful at the same time. And well, what's
yeah.
interesting, right, is we come into this world, this naked little baby that comes out into this big scary world, and then they slap a name on you and they give you your identity and they say, okay, this is who you're going to be now for the rest of your life. And then your identity is created through the actions that are taken when you're young and the influences that are hitting you. And you have to continue to grow through that identity. And so we have all these things that become who we are. And then when we get pulled out, what you're saying is, does that just shatter and you're actually like a bigger self of yourself? Or like that's what I'm trying to understand. Because like some of us, for instance, might like who we've become and we want to take a little bit of that with us.
Um, I've been smiling through the whole thing you're talking about because I actually changed my name, my entire persona. I changed Lonnie as actually my pen name.
Okay.
I literally changed my legal name because I believe we can recreate, we can completely transform who we are and identify differently than what they've slapped on us and said this is who you are and how you'll be called. I wanted to reinvent myself and from the inside out, and so I did. Um, but the core, yeah, I can see your wheels turning. But yeah, that's what happens when an association, for instance, with a name isn't good. And I wanted to grow into my legal name, which is Alexis Ray instead of Lonnee Ray. I wanted to be a ray of light someday. And it was quite a reach. It was quite a reach to, but I felt that if we can name it, claim it, we can make it so. And
Hmm.
so I did.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it is.
Um,
I love how you're saying that, how you changed the name and you became this other identity of who you are. And
yeah.
it just proves that we aren't just that. And that's what I think a lot of us have to understand.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest things I think lessons that a lot of people of NDEs have that I talk to is when they come back. This is why a lot of them come back and their lives shift dramatically. It might be an end of a marriage, might be a change of career, like, but things just, it's very difficult for people to hold on to what was before because they realize that that was just this construction of who they were, what who they were, and then they go and they go, oh, actually, I'm bigger than that, and I can create who I want to be, and they come back, and then it's a whole this whole identity shift.
Yes, identity shifts can be really difficult. I've had two dramatic moments in my life when I couldn't have told you how to cross the street. Like everything was taken, everything. I didn't know anything at all. And I understand how people can be scared to approach reinvention or, you
Hmm.
know, hang on to whatever, grappling to stay in an identity of some kind because the unknown can be scary. But I'm here to tell you that when we let go of the thing that we know, there can be so much more.
Hmm.
And I started learning about metaphysics and paranormal and quote unquote spirituality when I was 22, 21, 22. And my mother had become a trained medium, not a large, but a box. So my mom was, somewhat of an influence at that point. I hadn't seen her for 10 years or something, long time. But in that time, she became a psychic medium and had some influence in my life. And so I was very open to other things. And for a long time, I wore rose-colored glasses. We're all one. It's all good. I don't think that anymore. Um, I don't even, want to manifest the tunnel and the light. I want to exit the matrix. Thank you very much. But that's another topic. Um, yeah, I and yeah. Well, anyway, that's another topic. But I believe that we come in with a blueprint, and I had an experience of that, Joe, when I was 30-ish, trying so hard to understand if things were ever going to get better because it was such a struggle to get out of the gutter and find myself again or whatever, reclaim. And I went to a natal chart reading group. And so this was 30 years ago. And they were amateurs being led by one guy. And so he said, I'm going to show them stuff. You go sit over there. We'll call you over. And so I waited for what felt like an eternity. And then they finally called me back and they said, he was the spokesman. He said, ma'am, we just want to see if we're close, if we're on track. And they're all kind of like looking, excited but nervous. And they said, we see right here that you were 3 when your parents got divorced. Is that true? And I said, yeah, yeah. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. How is it that my parents, their reality is on my chart? And you guys, how do you see that? And then they got excited. Like, oh, the latitude, the longitude. They're trying to give me all the logistical way that they came. I wondered what else they saw, quite honestly, because there was trauma in my life. But that was the one point that they chose to confirm, are we on the right track? And I said, so much for free will, huh? Because that's everybody's fallback. And he said, well, there's always free will. And I was like, maybe not. If this is my natal chart and my parents' reality is on my chart, is it already done? And that's when people really freak out, Joe. They're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know. It's like, well, think about it. This particular incident has stayed with me. It doesn't bother me, but it's been the source of question ever since that day. And and the quandary of is there free will? Because if that was on my natal chart already, what are we doing? What are we thinking? And
Yeah,
people were like, well, there's
yeah.
always free will. And I was like, and I said, yeah, okay. So it can look like you exercised free will when you made a left-hand turn and maybe you should have made a right, but that's probably on the chart too. In our
Right.
step-by-step process of living life, to us, it looks like I'm exercising my damn free will right here, right now. Ha ha ha. And it maybe isn't. It just appears that way because of our understanding of time. So,
Hmm.
lots of questions. Everybody left with questions that night. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did so just I kind of got a little bit lost there. How did that moment come through? Was that through a reading or was that through an actual vision
No,
or
it was actually a meeting in a schoolhouse, and my printed chart was on the table, and these people just analyzed it and said, "Are we on
wow.
track?" Uh-huh.
Wow. And that
Yeah,
so
they
that
divorced right after my father tried to kill me.
hmm so that was there and that's when you started to really think about how free will is in our life. Like how we
Yeah,
actually have free will within our life. Interesting. Yeah. And it's
yeah,
I mean I so many have talked about pre-birth right? So many people I've talked to have spoke about this moment in time they can recall setting up their life's journey. And this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, but you do have free will. And I thought the same thing. Oh, if you have free will, but it's all set though. But the free will, if I really am honest, if I try to dig in a little bit, it could be that, well, there's this moment that can happen, but you have the free will on how to get there. But really, it means that there are little like pegs stuck down that you need to have within this
So that's fate.
incarnation.
Those are
Hmm.
fated experiences.
Hmm.
I was a ghostwriter for a book called Kicking Karma's Ass. I love to title things and be a little cheeky. And Kicking Karma's Ass is a great story of Pat Miller's life. Anyway, I went and I did extra research because she was convinced that she, what a life. Bless her heart. Not in the Southern way. Um, she, um, she felt that it was also one of those, maybe I was shitty, a bad person in a past life kind of thing. And I started digging deeper because good ghostwriters do that. And I explored the topics of fate and destiny and karma and free will. And what I've come to decide about it is there are fated experiences, and destiny is different. It's created by the choices that we make today. What's your destination? You're driving the car. What's your destination? Your left and right hand turns get you to your destination. Those are choices that you make. So in some regard, I can understand, you have free will to choose the path that you take to get there, but you're still going to get there. It's still going to happen. And yet, at some point in all of my metaphysical studies, it registered with me that you get to choose your exit ramp. That's what people called it, an exit ramp. Get to choose when you want to go. And that kind of segues into this other experience I'd love to share, if you're okay with
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Before we do that, I have a question. If we are, and maybe you'll want to answer this later, so you let me know. But
Okay.
my thought is, you mentioned something earlier about exiting the matrix, right? I've heard a lot recently. We all do our own research and we all do our own investigating, and I'm reading and watching around the idea of this being a little bit of, I don't want to use simulation because it just sounds so negative. I don't like the words. I don't like saying we're like this video game or simulation, but there's this idea that we're just these avatars moving around. And it just feels to me that just I guess in my own head, I just don't like the way that feels. But the idea is that we're put in here to have these experiences for whatever reason, for whoever's purpose, right? For our soul's purpose. And many people will say, well, what I want to do is not have to keep doing this, right? Because there's also people I've talked to who've tried to leave their life a little early, and they were said, hey, well, you can do that, but you're going back then because you still got to do this, this, and this. And this comes up sometimes, not all the time, but it's come up in other people's experiences, and I have to honor other people's experiences and what they've said.
Sure.
So I go, if that's the case, how do we work through life to exit the matrix? And maybe we can talk about that later, but I want to make sure that's in our minds in this show because I think it's really important because, I think it's a big piece.
I would love to talk about that. Um, yeah. And yeah, maybe on the tail end of this,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about that. I have some ideas about it, about what we're doing here, and and big questions. But just to tail on to the blueprint idea, I've always said I want to ask whoever has all the answers, what are the origins of desire? What makes us want what we want? Why are some of us drawn to do X and others Y and others Z? What are the origins of desire? And I think that's part of what's in our blueprint is that there are certain things that fated experiences. And some of them aren't just rosy and wonderful, there's just, I mean, look at what happens to people on this planet. There's no way they decided I want to be blown up in a war that has nothing to do with me and my family, there's no way. So, yeah, I have a lot of questions. We'll definitely explore that one.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to kind of like just put a little sprinkle of that out there so we can kind of touch on that. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I'd love to.
leading into this other experience, what, maybe let us know around what age you were when this happened and how it kind of moved into that.
Okay. It was 2018. So I was in my late 50s, and um, I wasn't doing the work that I'm doing now. I had tried everything. I've done every kind of job. I call myself a professional tumbleweed. I've tried everything. I've lived by like, oh, which way's the wind blowing? Pippi Longstocking right here, the adventure sign, my gnome. Like, I am the traveling girl. Let's just go. Let's see what's out there. That's how it's been. And that part of my life has been amazing, amazing, amazing adventures. But there was this other part, and I remember being, right out of college, and people were like, "Hey, kid, the world's your oyster. Everything's possible for you. Go for it." I was like, "Can you narrow it down a little bit? Can you help me out here? Because I'm not sure what to do with that. Everything's possible. You're smart. You got this." And I'm like, "What?" And what I experienced was over and over again, almost ran, almost finished, almost made it, got derailed. This fell off. That, oh, always something. And this was before I did Kicking Karma's Ass. This is before I was in books. This is just life happening. And I got an opportunity to be in a book, and it was one of those anthologies, multi-author books. And it was like magic. It was somebody that I had worked with before, and she and I talked about someday being motivational speakers and traveling the country and doing pop-up talks. And when she called and said, "I'm doing this," and I was so excited, and my friend lent me the money. It looked like everything was going to work out. And then my friend had a motorcycle accident, and he didn't have the money. And the leader of the book thing turned out to be really, really bad to deal with. But I stayed in. I had a chance. And this is often where things go awry, is when we override that still small voice that says, "Mm-mm." I had a chance to exit out of that whole deal, and I didn't, because I was scared that it would never happen for me again. That's another message I want to share, Joe, is if you get any kind of nudge, a little whisper that says do or don't, listen to it. Because only 99% of the time when things go awry, it's because I overrode that still small voice. And that happened in this particular scenario. I overrode it because I thought I was never going to have another opportunity to be in a book, to establish authority, credibility, expertise, all those things, and start what I thought was my calling. Um, I didn't have a good experience with them, and it was really, really bad, actually. I even flew down to Florida to walk across the stage to accept my Best Salesman Award for pre-sales, and they changed the time of the event and didn't tell me. They held it 2 hours earlier. I was sitting in my hotel room waiting for 6, not 4 p.m.
Wow.
It was really bad sabotage and very, very personal.
Hmm.
When the book finally came out, we bought it sight unseen. I did a lot of promotion within my networking group. I got business owners to whatever, a bunch of people to leave testimonials, and it was all supposed to be right by our picture and our page. And I got one from my mentor and old friend, Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for the Soul.
All right.
I used to work side by side with Mark.
Wow.
And right when the first chicken came out, he'd been on my talk show, and it led to knowing him, which led to that. Life has been an amazing journey of It has. It has.
Hmm.
And I was so proud to have Mark's testimonial or whatever you want to call it. And what they did was they took everybody's quotes and testimonials, they put them all in the back in a run-on sentence under your name. Include, website, everything was run-on sentence, broken up. It was not at all what they promised. Not at all.
Hmm.
And I was the only one who kept saying something about it. Apparently, I'm that person. No one else would. And so that got me further ostracized. I was literally blocked from the Facebook group. I was blocked, and it really went down in flames. I got 100 copies of that book sight unseen, and the only person to see them was the trash man, because the book was so embarrassing, such a waste of time and dime. And then on this particular night, it had been building. It had been building. I was a wreck. It's like, this too. Why can't it ever work out for me? Why? Is this just like my karma or something? Am I just going to have this messed up reality all the time? No matter what I do, it's not going to work out. And it really built up in this one particular night. And I heard, I don't know, dare I say, I heard a voice. I don't know if it was me making it up. I don't understand. But something said, just quit. It's always going to be like this. Just quit. It's what you came into experience. It's always going to be like this. And I coupled that with, we can choose our exit ramp. And I went back and forth from sobbing on the floor, the couch, to the kitchen, in the cupboard where the sleeping pills were. And I don't have sleeping pills. They were left by my friend, Rochelle. She used them. And I went back and forth a couple times, and the voice kept saying, just quit. It's always going to be like this. So I decided to. And so I poured, I don't know, 20, 30, I didn't count, sleeping pills in my hand. And I just took them. I said, fuck it, I'm done. I don't care. I was calling on my experience as that little kid in the ocean. And I knew, okay, yes, my mother told me when a soul suicides, it's confused, it gets stuck. I had that in my training kit, if you will. I knew that, but I didn't care. That night was just terrible. I wrote a note to the maintenance man. I'm sorry you're going to find me like this. Here's my car keys. I took the trash out. I put on my intended song for my funeral, beautiful song by Tiesto. I still love techno and house. And I went to bed to die. It was not a cry for help. I was just done. And as I was stumbling, the pills were hitting pretty fast. I banged into the wall, and this other voice happened. It was a different voice. And it said, oh, you quit too soon. You quit too soon. You quit too soon. Then I got mad. And I was like, where's the manual? Why can't I know? Too soon according to who? Too soon according to what? I thought I had free will here. What the hell? Oh, you quit too soon. You quit too soon. Shit, I can't even kill myself right. That was how it felt. And I'm always willing to be wrong. I'm the first one who will raise their hand and own it. So I said, okay, fine. And I'm conjuring up, like that night when the curtains blew, I'm conjuring up a challenge. And I was like, on the outside chance I'm wrong, angels, wake me up in the morning. I'm thinking, yeah, sure, you're going to do that. Uh-huh. And then I threw in, for good measure, Jesus, take the wheel. And I went to bed to die. And you ever had one of those dreams where you wake up talking?
Yeah.
I do. I woke up laughing the other morning. Anyway, I had a dream that my friend Rochelle was in my room, and it was so real. I sat up to talk to her, which meant I took a breath. She's not there. Fell back out.
Hmm.
It's a lot of sleeping pills.
Yeah.
I had a dream again. Same dream. Rochelle was in my room at the foot of my bed. I sat up to talk to her, took a breath, fell out. It happened again, 3 times that night. Same dream, same thing. Oh, now if I was going to make it, because, I could have thrown up and never gotten out, gotten up, if I was going to sleep through it, it would have been 4 days maybe. I don't know. I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning, sat on the side of the bed because I said if I can, wake me up in case I still have more to do. I was like, fuck, I guess there's more for me to do. 8 o'clock in the morning, I put my feet on the floor. I was like, okay, fine. I wasn't sick, hungover. I wasn't groggy. I was nothing. It's like it never happened.
Wow.
Nothing happened.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I guess there's more for me to do. Great.
Wow.
And
That's wild. You had no reaction from taking a large
like
amount
it
of,
never happened.
yeah, no, because that's not usually the outcome. It's not even close. You know, generally, I mean, I talk to a lot of people who've done certain things and, they wake up a week later in a hospital from coma, like if they make it, if that's if they make it.
If you
Maybe
make it,
sometimes a
yeah.
couple days at least, right? So,
Yeah,
so you got up
yeah.
feeling like you just had a really deep sleep.
I didn't really think anything of it. What's amazing, because how often do we remember our dreams in details? A lot of times we have a few seconds when we first wake up, right? And then it's gone.
Mhm.
But in this case, I remembered every instance of sitting up, taking a breath, looking for my friend. She's not here. Go back to sleep. I couldn't help it, but fall back out. And I just was baffled. I was like, fine. And then COVID came around. I was like, oh, you saved me for this. Great.
Great, great. Gets to experience. The world gets to, what the world gets to go through.
Great.
Yeah,
Yes. More suffering. Yes. More
yeah.
trauma.
It's even interesting that you kept waking up. It's almost like your body went into a state that kept you conscious through the night. Just kept you kind of like, I don't know what it was doing. Obviously, you probably don't know what it was doing, but you were having these constant waking up, going back to sleep, like almost like something within you kept you conscious so that you wouldn't go into an unconscious state. Do you know what I mean? So yes, you had to keep kind of staying with it. It's kind of
So,
like what comes to me right away, and this is my intuition, is you hear about somebody getting, say, hit by a car or something happens to somebody, and the paramedics will say, "Stay with us." Stay with
yes.
us, and
Yes.
they're trying to keep you because they know that if you decide to go, you can
Yes.
go. If you decide to
Yes.
close those eyes, so something kept you, and yet that's what was happening to you after you took what, not only that, you took sleeping pills.
Yep.
Should have kept you sleeping. Instead, you
Yep.
kept reawaking,
And sitting
reawaking,
up.
and sitting up. So it kept you conscious to be able to survive the ordeal, I think. And I think that's really probably what was going on. I'm guessing just by hearing the storyline, but that's quite an experience. How did that affect you and how did you,
I was mad.
yeah, so you were
Like,
mad, but you asked for it, right? Oh, that's what's the interesting thing. You said,
well, I
you
was willing
basically
to be
said,
wrong. I
mm-hmm,
whatever little voice came in sounded so pleading, so urgent,
mm-hmm,
so sad.
mm-hmm,
And I don't know where that came from. Um, I don't know. I don't know. But I was like, okay, fine. On the outside chance, I just,
mm-hmm,
okay, wake me up in the morning. Good luck with that.
right.
And that's been a mystery ever since. It's like, whose timeline are we on? Whose agenda are we running?
Mm-hmm.
is it all already done? And this was just, you just tried to quit too soon. That's what the message was. You quit too soon. Well,
Mhm.
why? Why? What else is supposed to happen? Well, since then, amazing things have happened,
Right. Right.
and they had to. I have to survive.
Hmm.
I had a terrible fall for my 60th birthday. I went roller skating, and I love roller skating. I'm thousands of hours on wheels, but not with the racer boots. And I fell and I broke my wrist in two places.
Wow.
And for as a 65 words a minute writer, I now type with one hand because my hand is permanently damaged. I cannot type with my
Mm.
left hand. But what had happened was I had to figure out how to survive. And as a result, I became a publisher because I'm really good at story development,
Hmm.
pulling that thread from somebody and saying, let's build on this. Became a publisher of 16 multi-author anthologies in 18 months,
Wow.
cranking them out once a month, yes,
Hmm.
to make it because I couldn't do what I was doing before. And that was another thing. It's like I had just gotten the best ghostwriting job of my life, couldn't wait to get another one, and then I fall. And
Hmm.
and it's like, here we go again.
Mm.
Almost ran, almost made it. God, como se dice what the hell in Espanol?
Right, right, right. So, so every time you're kind of moving in the direction you feel you're moving, something kind of pops up. At the same time,
Yes.
though, just hearing what you said that you've done since then, I mean, that tells me it was too soon, right?
I don't know. I had to make a living. I couldn't go back to being a chef. I can't lift stuff with my hand. I'm completely disabled in some ways now. I'm waving my fingers around here. They move, but I can't bend my wrist. There's nothing else I can do but intellectual property now. No physical job. So it's like, oh, okay. You got to scramble, man. You got to pivot. When life flips you upside down, you got to pivot.
I would also feel though that it feels like we're in control as much as we think we're in control, right? Because you know, you so in saying all that you're saying, and you had to kind of do what you're going to do, and you've done these amazing things. Those amazing things have led to other people being involved with those amazing things. So
Yes.
your ripple has moved through other people, and so
Yes.
because of that, had that
Yes.
night succeeded in you
Yes.
leaving, that those moments would not have happened for those other individuals and for the other souls or whatever we're doing. And so my I guess my point is that the message that came through is too soon. It was your it's saying, yeah, no, it's not happening yet. It's too soon. I think it should give a little bit of peace of mind to people out there because people lose people all the time. This is a big piece of why I love my show. The show here is because I'm trying to bring peace of mind to people that have maybe had a loss that has completely crippled them in their life. Because sometimes you look at it like, okay, if this is going on, if your life story has unfolded the way it is, then is not to say the same that a life story of someone who has passed at a time that we think is maybe too soon is maybe not too soon for them. Perhaps that was the exit point that was supposed to have happened. I know it sounds awful. I mean, I lost my father at a young age in his 50s. I lost my, I've lost people that I had to question, like, why? But then part of me is like, oh, maybe this is wishful thinking to feel like, oh, it was their time. But then the other part is I look at a story like your story, which has the opposite moments where you've had to conquer through so many difficulties to get where you are, and yet here you still stand talking to me in this physical form, whereas the other person is gone like that. So it makes me wonder. I think there is these timelines and these moments, these exit points within our incarnation. Um, I don't know if you agree with that, but I think there's kind of maybe there's perhaps a few, but I think there are moments where you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I'm a little amazed at my own self for not pulling up the birth chart again and saying, okay, let's have a look at this and see, was all this on there, you
Hmm.
know? I did study pre-birth agreements. I did look into all that, and maybe there is that. I took great solace in that, and joy, having lived in Australia, for instance, and met all these people, and I was like, oh, and we must have agreed to meet, and that's cool. I had that perspective. But as far as people that leave what we think is too soon, I don't know who's running the show or if it's all already done. I kind of think it is, and that's a bit fatalistic. Nobody wants to hear that. But I'm also the weirdo in the crowd that said, if I could know my death date, I'd be happy to know. I don't care. I don't care. It's not a death wish. It's like I know that passing is easy. It's living that's challenging.
Right.
Hello.
Right.
If I
Yeah.
knew it was another 30 years, I'd be like, okay, I guess I better go to the dentist. Okay, fine.
Right. Well, you've
You
also,
know?
and because you've also had that brink moment, right?
Yes.
You got to understand your existence is energy is not destroyed. There's a part of you that continues to move into whatever we go into, whatever that is. There's this piece. So that destroyed your fear around it. And at the same time, this, yes, incarnating and being in this earth is a difficult thing. As many people that watch the show know, I'm a very optimistic person and I try to look for the beauty in life and I try to find the things that bring us joy and the things that give us meaning. And so, in all the things you've gone through, do you find solace in that at all? Do you find moments of that? Are you able to find that more now?
I think the qualifier you just tagged on there with the more now part caused me to stop because I have been through so much BS dealing with so many more people. Whereas the careers that I've had have not been a one woman show getting multiple people together, training, publishing, promoting, doing it again and again and again and again. I
Hmm.
have been a solo writer, lone wolf, or chef in the kitchen, or running an office. This dealing with a whole bunch of other people it was not on my bucket list. I never imagined myself being a writing trainer. I have it in me. I didn't know that. That's cool. And it has, the experience that they have has changed their lives. The confidence, careers have been launched. Amazing things have happened for some of the writers that I have had in these books, which is wonderful. And that is why I do what I do, because I love what happens for them. But at the same time, I'm like, whether it was me or somebody else, if it's on their chart to go, be, a speaker, and they need a book done, some other method can happen. I don't think I'm that special. I just happen to be an opportunity that showed up, and pretty good at what I do. Can I just say that? I do it differently than everybody else because I had a really bad experience
Hmm.
with the
Hmm.
first book I was in. I know better. I know how it can be better.
Hmm.
So all that's very rewarding. It has not come at an easy price at all.
How do you find meaning and happiness in your life now?
I it's I go out, I go outside on my property. I'll tell you a story. I saw some TikTok videos where there was a challenge. Can trees hear us? And I saw a number of people prove that the tree would move and touch them or whatever. So I thought, I'm gonna try that because I've always been very connected to nature. And this particular day, I went out and I put out what I call my wonky hand, and I put it out there for and the branch was pretty high. It was kind of one of those, let's see if you can do this. And I said, can you touch my hand? And I swear, Joe, I saw the bigger part of the branch move down. And
Mm,
then the leaf came down, and it didn't just touch, it did this on my hand.
mm,
So when that leaf decided not to just touch, but lay completely over my, and kept going, I was like, okay, you can stop now.
wow.
It really proved to me the sentience of nature around us, and that's what brings me the greatest joy. Almost every day, I go out, I say hi to them, hi guys, and I will stand by a branch and I will challenge it to touch. I'll say touch my cheek, and it will touch my lip, and it will. It
Wow.
will. It happens a lot, and every time it does, I laugh. I laugh, and I'm like,
Hmm.
thank you.
Hmm.
Because as far as I can remember, what's real to me is nature. When I sold everything and bought a one-way ticket from Florida to Alaska with no clue what was going to happen when the plane landed, and it worked out, I just wanted to be in that much nature. I didn't care what it took.
Hmm.
And the people, places, and things that manifested are truly amazing, truly remarkable. Again, one of those moments where, oh, you should have made a right and you made a left. Yeah, and it led to this and led to that and led to that. And an unbelievable journey happened because I wanted to see the big skies. I wanted to see that much snow. I went back 3 times to Alaska. I love it.
Hmm.
So it's nature that I find my greatest joy in.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I always kind of listen when I go through these conversations with people. There's always kind of like this because I'm hearing someone's life journey for the first time. I've never met you. We've just meeting. I'm very grateful that we've met, and I hear people's journeys, and then I have kind of like the summary, and then I come up with my own idea of the summary. And I don't always say it, and sometimes I do, because I'm always worried about if I say it, maybe the guest won't resonate with it because I'm speaking on their life journey. But this is what I feel with you, and I feel with quite a few people sometimes, is I think where, and this is for everyone, I think where we can find happiness is when we finally learn to let go of control
Mm.
and we let life, because you said we don't know who's in control of the whole thing, right? But so many of us are trying to control the outcome in whatever way we're doing it. And it's when we finally put our hands up and let go that we actually feel free. That's when freedom, happiness, and everything happens. And it's just so funny that so many of us do that. And a lot of what you've said today, I just feel there were times in your life where you could have done that, but you didn't. You were still trying to. And I don't mean you're a control person. I personally am learning this. I'm like that myself. So it's resonating with me. But there's this feeling of eventually you have to go with the stream and quit swimming upstream. Does this make sense at all?
Yeah, it does in concept for sure. But when you're just trying to make a living, and you've got a
Hmm.
lot of abilities and things crash and burn over and over again, you have to wonder who's running the show here because this is not my free will to have this happen.
Hmm.
And I don't subscribe to the you came here to learn a lesson thing. I think that if we emanate from a higher sense, a higher self, or all knowing, the memory wipe that we acquire when we come here is really sucks, frankly. That's how I feel about it. But
Right. Yeah.
why would a divine being choose to just forget everything? Let me just go to Earth and be stupid. Yeah, that makes sense, said no
Yeah.
one. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm just not buying that. I don't
Right.
buy it. I don't buy it. I
Hmm.
refuse. And I used to think like that because it made me feel better. And I think that's what people do is they make up stories to tell themselves so that they can feel like they have some sense of control over what the hell's happening to them. And I don't know that that's absolutely the truth of what's happening. It's just a story we tell ourselves. Like, oh, I came here to learn lessons. If you look around at some of the things people have gone through, you can pretty much bet they did not elect to learn that lesson. You can probably tell. The suffering that happens on this planet and the deception and the darkness, I didn't even want to admit there was evil until 2019, 2020. I didn't, no. Mm. Okay, so then, why do bad things happen to good people? So then those good people are like, well, I must have needed a lesson. Like, no, you really didn't. You really didn't need a lesson of an abusive father who hurt you, you really didn't. I don't buy it. So, is that people grasping at straws to feel like they have a sense of control over life? Maybe.
Hmm. So going back to what we asked earlier on in the show, then, how do we break those cycles of that and break through this matrix, not needing to continue on this rebirth,
Oh,
if the case,
reincarceration is what I call
re,
it.
well, if there's a way to, if we can't look at it, if we can't look at it like we were meant to learn that lesson, right? And what what can we do to move through it at ease, find peace and love and joy, because we know that's where we're going, and to not have to continue to come back to that cycle? I guess that's a huge question, but I'm trying to give some kind of positive uh, walk away for the guests that have, or for the audience that's been.
Okay, I have some answers on this.
Mhm.
I'm sorry I had to jump over and grab my book.
That's okay.
But I have to refer to this
Hmm.
because once I realized how messed up things really are, and I know it's an uncomfortable and inconvenient reality check for all of us to know what it is, because simply being aware of it creates its own anxiety. But action alleviates anxiety. But there are some things we can't do anything about. And so what we have to do, here's the positive, is that when we see whatever it is, first of all, delete the need to understand. Delete the need to understand. And that is so hard. And I spent what 40 years trying to undo all the BS and analyze it. And people are like, you live in your head. Like I'm trying to know what happened so I can undo it. Leave me alone. But delete the need to understand is eventually a place of great freedom. It's like, oh, okay, these are the two words every time now. And I put it in this book, How to Deal with a Dumbass, What to Do and Say When They Come Your Way. And this, I point to this for a reason. This is fun. It's funny. I didn't mean to promote, but I'm telling you, I wrote this in response to all the crap I was seeing on the main stage. We'll call it that, the crazy clown show. And I was rabbit hole. I mean, coming up dirty, like, oh my God, I had no idea it was like that. I was digging, 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 all during what I call convid. And so I was really looking like, what is going on here? What's really going on? And and then I would get kind of traumatized. And I'm like, I disappeared for a few years. People on LinkedIn probably thought I died because I was gone. I had to figure out what was going on and then find my light again. I had to figure out how to find the ding again. And you can. And this is why I pointed out this book, because it was written in response to all this craziness. The two words that will help instantly, no matter what we see, is if we just simply go, oh, to ourselves. Oh, okay. It's like that, huh? Oh, okay. Because you can put emphasis on that in your head, like, oh, okay. Or, any way you want. It will, if you do it right, it'll make you laugh. You'll chuckle. Oh, okay. All right. It's like that, huh? Oh, okay. Because when you do that, you become like Teflon. And the thing that you're looking at that's so awful or so offensive and so hard to grasp, is it really like, oh, okay, it's like that, huh? It will wash past you instead of being stuck on you. And that's what matters. Because if we don't, what happens then is we carry it to the office, to home, to every place we go. If somebody cuts you off on the way to work, people have kind of had a hard time with the title, How to Deal with a Dumbass. But what's the first thing you say when somebody cuts you off? Dumbass. It's what we do. It's where we go. So what? So what? But there are 5 red flags that you can look out for, personality traits, so that you can minimize having cymbal clanging monkeys on your porch who are going to cause chaos in your life. We cannot control what's going on the bigger picture, the matrix even. We can't. What we can do is manage our reality. And when people say you create your own reality, I say you create your own experience of the reality that's showing up. Because otherwise, you create your reality and I create mine and she creates hers and we're all in the same room together. Who's creating the reality then? Who's running that show? So I really believe that it's up to us to decide how we want to experience what's happening. And oh, okay, it's like that, huh? And then you ask yourself, do I want more or less of this? And move your feet accordingly. And when you do that, then you feel like you have some say in the matter. And you do. We all do. It's how we respond to what's showing up. Can't control the weather. Oh, the U.S. Air Force does. That's a sidebar. But, we can. Things happen, right? Okay, it happens. So how do we take it? That's why it's subtitled "What to Do and Say When They Come Your Way," because it seems to be my calling, Joe, to come up with great interview questions and responses. And it showed up a number of times in having hosted 9 shows, right? Interviewing for the books. It's always about how can, how can I fill in the blank? And this is the one question I love to leave shows with, which is when we ask, how can I, implies it's possible, right? So, how can I have more fun today than I ever thought possible? And when you ask, how can I? And you don't have to sit here and thump your forehead and go, well, what would be fun? I don't know. What would be the most fun next? That's how I've lived my life. But how can I have more fun today than I ever thought possible? If you say that and let it go, it will work itself out. I promise you, at the end of the day, if, especially the ones that you think are just going to be awful or they start out, Murphy's Law kind of day, if you look back at that day, if you remember to, you'll be like, it was more fun than I ever thought possible. Allow allow your intention to go out and work itself out for you. That is the release of control. That is allowing things to unfold for you. And I love that how that works out. Because yeah, I mean things happen, emails come in, people call the guy down the hall sets his oven on fire. It's shit I don't have any control over. Okay? I can't. But our response, it can keep us up at night or make us sleep well. And I think ultimately what we want to do is bring neutrality. There is good and there is bad, there is dark, there is light, there is evil, it is here. It is what this is. Okay. Oh, okay. It's like that, huh? Okay. Okay. Now what? How do we respond to it? And that place of neutrality, I consider neutral to be the highest gear. But at the same time, there are things that we should allow ourselves to be angry about. There are things happening to people that shouldn't be happening. And it's okay to have all our gamut of emotions because that's a human experience. We're not robots. And I've met people, and I don't know if they call that toxic positivity or what, and they're like, everything's good. I'm like, actually, it's not.
Right. Well, it's interesting too. I love everything you just said, and it every time I would think of something I was going to say, you'd hit it. So we're in the same wave energy here, right? Because earlier on I had said the biggest thing is to let go, to quit trying to control your life and just to let go. Well, it doesn't mean to be complacent to reality either. Like you don't just sit there and go, okay, I'm just going to let everything happen. Because how we react, right? How we react to things can also move us in different directions. So yes, we may not have the full control of everything, but our reactions and the way that we respond to what's happening to us is what will change things in our life. So that's an important takeaway. I didn't want to make it seem as if what I was saying is, just let things happen and everything will work itself out because
Well,
that's, you know,
but there are a lot of people who have been lulled into passivity and oh, it's supposed to
Mhm.
happen this way. Actually, it's not. Actually, I think we're supposed to recognize the divine power within us to manifest what needs to be done for us personally as well as globally. I think we're supposed to be stewards for this planet. These chemtrails piss me off, okay? It's not okay. It's not, you can't sit at home and say Om, it's and the new earth is going to show up. And no, we got to do something.
Mhm.
We got to take action
Mhm.
because otherwise we're just going to get steamrolled by these bullies. And so I never thought that you meant, oh, let's just do nothing, stop trying to control it. But I understood what you meant. But I think we're being called to take action. And otherwise, it's consent.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
Pick
I
one.
yeah, and I just I like how you've laid everything out, and it's something that, I mean, this is why I do what I do with the show. This is why having the guests on and having these conversations can open up people's minds. It could affect them in a way that they do something in their day that changes something. That's how everything evolves. That's how we evolve, right? Whether or not we know what's going on beyond this, you've explained a lot of different experiences today. It's we no one's, and this is the interesting thing. I have a lot of people who question, Joe, wow, all these people you talk to, like, isn't it confusing your mind? And I said, no, like, I listen to everyone's experiences and I take a little bit and then I formulate my own ideas
Yes.
of what feels right for me.
Yes.
But I'm not going to sit here and tell one person they're wrong and this person's right, and that's not who I am. And I think that's why I love what I do, because I just spread the message, as long as it's not hurting anyone. Of course, I wouldn't spread a hurtful message out there. But I would just say to anybody listening today, what I got from it is that we don't have all the answers to who's in control and what's going on, but the best thing we can do is to be aware. I've used this awareness idea. Be aware of our actions, be aware of our um, responses, because it can help us move in the right direction. And I've just really appreciated it. You said that I love the name. I do love the name of the book, and the picture of it was hilarious. It me,
Thank you.
I will probably, they probably won't show me laughing because they'll probably show you showing the book to the audience. But I was just laughing when I seen the picture of the guy on there, because it's perfect look for it. So, but where do people find your information? Do you have a website and where people can find these books and everything?
Thank you. Yeah. Um, my website is book, like a book, Lonnee.com.
Oh.
BOOK Lonnee.com. Um, I did a podcast. I did 65 episodes. It was my first solo. I had to get it off my chest, and it was based on this book, How to Deal with a Dumbass. You'll see a laughing donkey on the cover of that podcast. And so that's because I know people learn through audio too. And so I would love it if people look that up on Spotify. They're short form episodes based on the book.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, a contagious laugh and life lessons. Um, all the books that I've published are on Amazon. They're also on Barnes and Noble and multiple locations, but most people go to Amazon first.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, if you wanted to reach me, it's hello@booklonnie.com. Hello, how we doing?
Well, I love that. I would encourage anyone that's been listening and find your like just your you approach things in a little bit of a different way, and that's what I appreciate. And you're a real person, like, not to say, I mean, I love all my guests, but I've always appreciated authenticity. I can read people talk. Maybe I have some clairs going on. I don't know what we call these things, but my intuition, I pick up on things very easily. So I can tell when someone has authenticity coming through, and that's what someone should appreciate with you, because you're being real. And it's important for us to not. Um, I just think that this whole idea of trying to control everything is a big. That's what I've got from this today. We can do what we can do in our lives, but the message that I got from you is, even when you had that close call with death, you felt peace, you felt immediately. Um, you know, that, and probably when you came back, I mean, that would have spurred so many questions in your mind of who you really are. I mean, your entire life after that, right? Just kind of like, what was that? Where did I go? Now what? Like, I've said I think I would have trouble having an NDE because I think it would affect me I'm such a sensitive person. I think it would have affected me so hard. But I do appreciate you sharing everything today.
I appreciate the opportunity and genuinely hope that if I survived for the for this moment, that might help someone else who is forlorn, torn up, wondering if, they'd be better off gone. Believe me, I courted that idea since I was a child.
Hmm.
And it isn't up to you to decide. How do you like me now? Okay? You can't you don't pick, okay? Don't pick your exit ramp. Just know and trust that you're still fogging a mirror. And I don't mean to sound preachy right now, Joe, but if we really look, what we look for we find. And if we look around and go, all the things that you're surrounded by, everything is we manifested. You manifested all your equipment. I manifest things, crazy cool things. If we could all just start remembering how powerful we are as
Mm.
manifestors, then the empowerment that could come from that. And it starts by looking like, I manifested this, everything I brought into my world, and you did too, and so did all you guys listening. Everything around you, you brought in. Remember how powerful you are, because we've been coached, so to speak, co- co- cut down really as humans to be disempowered. And that's, you know, I think that there are forces here that want to stay in control, and they would like nothing more than for you to buy into the lie that you're anything less than a wonderful, incredible,
Hmm.
divine spark. That's
Absolutely.
all they want, is for you to buy their bullshit.
I love, yeah. And that is my hope for the future. Again, the optimism, the glass half full idea that we're evolving, that things are happening. If you look back, I keep saying this to everyone, these conversations weren't happening 100 years ago. Not like this,
I know.
right? So we're moving in some kind of direction. It's not easy to move in the direction. We're going through a very difficult time. But I would say that something's happening, and I'm encouraged by that. The last question I always ask everyone at the end of every show, and this can be brief as you want. I think you've answered it 10 different ways already. But if the afterlife is beautiful, if it has if it's truly who we are, um, and I know you've mentioned that it's not just simply to learn, but if there was a purpose to this, to you and I right now, what is this purpose to come in here and do this? Why would we come and do this?
Well, I think we live in a soul trap, so sometimes we don't really have the say. I think that there's something's gone awry with the experiment that is Earth. And I laughed I was shocked. I was appalled 5 years ago when I first heard the concept of a soul trap. I thought that's insane. But if you keep an open mind and you really start to look, you actually see, I know now why she said that. And with that in mind, I think that's kind of how we get caught here. It's why I call it reincarceration instead of reincarnation. And that I don't like that part, and it needs to end. The fence, the gate, the thing that's kept us from our divinity. Why do we only have two active strands of DNA and they call the rest junk DNA? It's bullshit. We have 12, and we're amazing beings, and we've been dumbed down. And if there's a reason why we're still here, what I want to make mine about, Joe, is to remember who we are,
Hmm.
and absolutely say no. I do not consent to whatever you think I should be, because I know better. And and empower each other with that. Because the funny thing is, like the internet of things. They want to keep us all looped in with that, and that way they can monitor every freaking breath we take and all this stuff. Guess what? We're using it for conversations like this. We're using it to right to change the world. So to you guys,
Absolutely.
ha
I love that.
ha
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. That's what I mean. You say things that I think I'm thinking sometimes that I want to say, but I just don't have the you know what to say it on my show
I
yet.
will.
But absolutely, I love it. So I appreciate you coming on and saying it the way you do. That's why I love what I do because I feel like it's almost like I feel like this show brings up conversation that's almost like haha sneaky. We're getting in there and we're getting
Uh-huh.
those little messages out there in this grand scheme of
Yeah,
psychosis of people walking around glued to their like they're not
I
really
know,
here.
right?
But if they're pressing play and they're listening to this and they're watching this and they're reading books like you put out and they're seeing things that are just filling their souls, not junking their minds, then I think that we're on the right track. But I do appreciate you being here. I always talk to the audience at the end of the show and say, please, please, please subscribe. Continue to share these episodes. This one's a real fun one. So if you want someone to listen and get an open mind and have a different perspective on things, I would encourage you to share it because this is why we do it, the Soul Inspired. So, but I've really loved having you on, Lonnee. I could see you being someone I have on again someday. So if we definitely like to stay in touch with you. But I really appreciate you being on today.
Wild horses couldn't keep me away, Joe. Let's do it again sometime. Thank you ever so much for the opportunity.
So vision, so vision.
Awesome. It's so nice to meet you. Whatever drew you to do this? I mean,
I have no idea how I'm here, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I think that's the best way to do it. I don't,
I don't
I was
know.
just doing a lot of music and coaching music. And next thing you know, I'm doing a spiritual podcast. So it just kind of it just happened, and now
Guess that makes sense.
it's
Okay.
continuing to grow. So it's been a fun journey. And I love meeting all these different people, including yourself. It's just, I feel like it feels like my soul family's coming online or something. So it's just a journey I'm taking right now. So
Oh, you give me goosebumps and it's
yeah.
hot in here. That's beautiful.